I've had a couple people ask me to do a prophetic update. I keep a list of things that to me seem like they may have some prophetic significance, and I'm just going to run through that today. Jesus said that you can discern the weather and yet hypocritically not recognize the spiritual signs of the time for the return of Christ. And he says that in Matthew 6, verses 2 and 4, and Luke 12, verses 54 to 56. So I'm just going to roll here. Federal troops were deployed around our nation since June 2025 by President Trump. He's deployed the National Guard and federal agents to Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Memphis, Portland, Chicago, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Minneapolis, Baltimore, New York, San Francisco, Oakland, St. Louis, Chapel Hill, Durham, Raleigh, and other cities, even though several of those areas had reported lower crime statistics than in past years. And this is in addition to the ICE agents, which have also been mobilized in many places. So the question is, why are troops mobilized or military mobilized over our United States? There are rumors about border incursions or staging of Chinese troops on our borders. I don't know, but I just thought it was an interesting aside. Also, the planetary defense system was stood up by multiple countries, including the United States, Russia, China, the European Space Agency, which is 23 European member countries, along with Asia. And Congress in 2005 had an authorization act called the George E. Brown Jr. Near-Earth Object Survey Act. And Apophis, the asteroid, was identified on June 19th, 2004. It is 5 football fields large. NASA says that there's a 2.7% chance of it hitting the Earth on April 13th, 2029. Several other world engineers have a far higher predictive analysis of Earth impact, although admit that it will fly under some satellites that are surrounding the Earth. It will be near us, and it is scheduled to return on its orbit past the Earth again on March 27th, 2036. And the question, is this the mountain mentioned in Revelation 8:8, where a great mountain during the tribulation is thrown into the sea and turning 1/3 of it to blood, killing animals, sea animals, and also destroying ships? I don't know the answer on that. January 27th, 2025, President Trump signed an executive order to create the Golden Dome before the end of his term in 2028. The Golden Dome will encompass the entire Earth, like the Strategic Defense Initiative proposed by Ronald Reagan. The command and control of it will be automated through a cross-domain AI system so that there are multiple countries involved in this. And President Trump in June 2025 bombed Iran to eliminate their nuclear program. President Trump advocated in both 2025 and in 2026 to join the USA, and Alberta in Canada is now asking, and they want to be annexed by the USA, which is a very wealthy part of Canada because of the oil there and we'll see how that all works out. President Trump on January 3rd, 2026, took Venezuela. And when interviewed by the New York Times, they reported he said only time's going to tell how long we'll be there, but we're rebuilding it in a very profitable way. We're going to be using the oil and taking the oil and giving money to the Venezuelan people, which they desperately need. President Trump in both 25 and in 2026 wants Greenland to become part of the United States, and that's an ongoing negotiation now. They say it's for a strategic northern protection. And there are, if you know anything about Bible prophecy, Revelation 17:12 talks about 10 kings who in 1 hour will give their power over to the Antichrist. And the Club of Rome has a map of the world that is divided the world into 10 kingdoms. There are other organizations at the world level that have also decided that the world should be divided into 10 regions. The question is, what map will be used to do that dividing? And I think that, just as Carol's idea, that President Donald Trump is using the technocracy map, which is kind of a blend of President Bush. They had talked about the Amero uniting Canada, the United States, and American interest economically. But if you look at the technocracy map, it includes Greenland, Canada, the United States, Mexico, Venezuela, and Cuba. So I think there's going to be a move on Cuba, probably because of Russia and China having, during the Biden administration, been very active there, and whether or not there are weapons there or other things off the coastal United States, I don't know. But it just seems that is where he wants to form this alliance for America power. And then you've got the Gog and Magog war countries from Bible prophecy of Russia, Turkey, Iran, Sudan, and Libya. And we do know there is already an alignment between Russia and Iran, Sudan, and Libya. The question is Turkey. And I would say let's keep a close eye on Turkey, because even though they're a NATO member right now, they do lean towards Russia interests. So they bear close watching. And we have prayed and prayed for all hidden things to be revealed. And God is the one who brought out the Epstein files. The politicians fought it en masse. The President Trump fought releasing it. And it makes great blackmail material. Of that, there is no doubt. But what has come out, the millions of files out so far, implicate many politicians, many royals, many foreign leaders who have abused, possibly killed, and even eaten children and taken advantage of others. And God is the judge on that. And I don't know how that all is going to fall out, but there is a issue about ruining your name. And as Prince Andrew has found out in the royal family, his name is pretty bad. Epstein's name is pretty bad. The politicians who are named, the foreign leaders that are named in this, King Charles at this point may end up having to abdicate his throne. But yet in the United States, there hasn't been any arrest or any prosecutions of anybody, really, except for Ghislaine Maxwell, who is in a club fed, if you will, a very mild prison experience. December 19th, 2025, President Trump signed a memorandum titled Winning the 6G War Race. Winning the 6G race. And with 6G implementation to begin by the beginning of 2028. And 6G is needed for AIs, systems for robotics, and interestingly, implantable devices. We all know about Elon doing the brain implants, but there also is the possibility of implantable devices into people so that you don't have to use your cell phone for verification of who you are. We're already paying with like Apple Wallets, and actually in Whole Foods with Amazon, you can pay with your palm. So we are moving that direction. And President Trump, September 5th, 2025, changed the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. Why? I don't know. We don't know, but that change happened. CERN is a whole thing in and of itself. What is going on with CERN? If you have not read into it, it is definitely worth your time. Scientists are saying that they have received some advanced artificial intelligence information that has helped with mankind. I personally think that there are no aliens. I think that they are at best communicating with demonic entities, but some of the rituals and things they have done at CERN, including the statue of Shiva, it's just a shocking thing. January 18th, 2026, in multiple news reports, they warned that aliens could affect the markets and bank collapses. So the Bank of England on January 18th, 2026, and this is published in several news articles, are coming up with plans on how to stabilize markets and prevent bank collapses with the announcement of aliens, which sounds kind of crazy until you realize that was January 18th, 2026. And then on February 16th, 2026, former President Obama at a podcast with Brian, when asked about aliens, confirmed that they do exist, but that he hasn't seen any. And then February 20th, which is 4 days later, President Trump on Air Force One was asked about the alien comment from President Obama, and he said, I may have to declassify aliens to get President Obama out of trouble. And then a few days after that, like the next day maybe, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth was asked about aliens, and he said that we're working on the release of information. We're all going to find out together what it is. So I don't know. So January 2nd, 2026, the Pope in the Mirror was said to have been preparing for first contact with aliens on baptizing them into the faith, sacrament questions. There's a cardinal apparently that's been assigned to baptize them, who says that depending upon what happens with the aliens, They may be baptizing us because they may be actually further in faith. So I don't believe in aliens. I believe there are dimensional beings that are fallen angels and they are deceivers. But I do not believe that we have aliens in the sense of what we're going to be potentially told they are. Data centers for AI, super intelligence. They are installing cameras everywhere to monitor roads, houses, stores. Ring is building a database and we saw that with the disappearance of Mrs. Guthrie, how they were able to go back through, even though she had no subscription, all of these films to be able to get footage of who was at her door. But they're monitoring, they're saying, so that you can find your lost pets. But they're building a database. There's a supercomputer, the AI is building database so that all internet, cell phone, text, financial data, everything is being monitored. And the state of Virginia is to be the data center capital of the world with more capability than China and Beijing. And that was reported in the Virginia Economic Development Partnership called the Dawn of Data in the fourth quarter of 2019. And also in the Climate News publication dated October 26, 2025. The Bible talks about that this Antichrist, the in place of Christ, gives life to the beast, the image of the beast. And is that a AI system? I don't know. Crypto. USA passed the Genius Act July 17th, 2025. President Trump's sons created World Liberty Financial along with many meme coins. And President Trump is aggressively promoting the USA as the crypto capital of the planet. The Clarity Act is pending approval, and that is what is going to be able to get big banks on board because it provides legislation and control. 3 countries have already fully launched CBDCs: Bahamas, Jamaica, and Nigeria. 130 countries are investigating CBDC adoption, and China, Hong Kong, Thailand, the United Arab Emirates have all implemented CBDCs to some extent. This matters because the Bible is clear that there is going to be a one world economy, and China has already shown us that you can cut off people's monies by social credit scores. We saw during COVID, you could not even get into stores in certain countries or even on planes if you did not have an app that updated daily, clearing you as safe and approved to travel. So this is an interesting thing to keep your eye on because the Bible talks about there are going to be delusions and strong delusions. We can no longer say seeing is believing because AI has become very accurate in projecting images, sounds, even creating movies and things. And it is almost impossible to determine fact from fiction. And if they just have a few seconds of you talking and different photographs, it is astounding what AI can create. President Trump attended the World Economic Forum this year in Davos, and on January 22nd, 2026, he created the Board of Peace. This is an international organization with a 20-point framework to end the Gaza conflict. And this board will act as an alternative to managing large-scale infrastructure projects, with the USA acting as the administrative center with permanent membership requiring $1 billion contribution for each member. And there are 20 members of this Board of Peace. And it's interesting that they're involved in this Gaza negotiation, and they will be for other areas as well, because the Bible's clear that when they're saying peace, peace, then comes sudden destruction. And we're certainly not in a place where we're calling peace, peace right now. There's quite a bit of war going on. So let's talk a moment about Jared Kushner. He is Ivanka Trump's husband. And in President Trump's first and second term, he is one of the masterminds who is negotiating for the Abraham Accord, which is the declaration of peace for the Middle East. He is a member of the WEF Peace Board of Peace. He's an individual who is a member, and he purchased, and this was a little while back, 666 Fifth Avenue in New York for $1.8 billion, which is 600,000 times 3. 666 is apparently a number he likes. February 2025, President Trump announced plans to rebuild Gaza. And Jared presented a beautiful, full-color, well-designed plan for Gaza to become an AI smart city. And the project is called Project Sunrise. It is an interesting name choice, considering that Satan is called the Shining One, and also the Son of the Morning in Isaiah 14:12, just an interesting parallel to me. I'm not saying that Jared Kushner is the Antichrist. I'm not saying that President Trump is the Antichrist. I'm just saying this is an interesting moment. Things that make me go, Project Sunrise is defined as a high-tech metropolis that will be filled with high-tech trains, a luxury beach resort, and housing. And it's in the video I saw promoting it, it has President Trump with transgendered people, which was kind of an odd pairing based on him getting rid of DEI and child transgenderism. But Project Sunrise is a spot at Gaza where Daniel 11:45 says that the king of the north, which most Bible scholars believe is the one that's called the Antichrist, sets his palatial tents between the sea and the holy mountain. And the holy mountain is Zion, which is the Temple Mount. And if you look at a map, Gaza is the area in between the Temple Mount and the Mediterranean Sea. In Zephaniah 2:4-7, God calls that land his, and he keeps his eye on it. And the Bible over and over indicates that Gaza is a land of turmoil and where God brings judgment. It's where Samson went, and Delilah brought judgment on him. The plans which were produced for Project Sunrise were years in the making. They could not have just rolled out this on the moment notice. This has been in planning. And all of this is to be built on the bones and the blood of so many people that were recently killed. There were destroyed hospitals, daycares, schools, homes, retirement, assisted living, mosques, All of these things were completely destroyed. That area is nothing but rubble now. And there are warnings to people who divide the land of God. God separates goat nations from sheep nations. In Revelation 19:19, it says that the leaders of the world make war with him who sits on the white horse, which many Bible scholars believe to be Jesus. And then we had Oumuamua enter our solar system from outer space on October 19, 2017 is when we saw it. And it was named Oumuamua, which means a messenger from afar, a messenger from afar, or a scout. And it was an elongated cigar-shaped object that still has much mystery surrounding it. Astrophysicists disagreed on whether it was an alien artifact or a natural-made object. And then on July 1st, 2025, 3I Atlas was the second time that we ever saw an interstellar object enter our solar system. It was very unusual in composition and behavior, and it caused much disagreement among astrophysicists as well. And data analysis on that will be studied for years. But it's interesting that these things happened when they were arguing that they could be alien probes, and when we're looking at potential alien announcements. The opening ceremony for the Olympic Games of 2026 completed that opening ceremony with an atom that looked like a pentagram surrounded by red colors, similar to hellfire in the look, at a gate. And they said that this was an atom, the flame of the Olympics. But while that was happening, Andrea Bocelli was singing Nessun Dorma, a very emotive and powerful delivery of Puccini's masterpiece. The triumphant theme means I will win. It is an anthem of victory. The question is, whose victory and who will win? Because it definitely was a very dark opening ceremony if you saw it, and it was concerning to see the pentagram in the gates. Google Translate has brought us to a place of being in one language. It is very easy now to set your iPods so that it translates, so it's no longer difficult to understand foreign languages. And I regularly translate articles and news from other languages and can do this in a moment. So what happened at the Tower of Babel about God dividing the languages? Man is figured out how to now unify so that no matter what language, where you travel, if you have a little technology savvy, that you can communicate easily with the people there. And the World Economic Forum, as one of their tenets, has forced migration and immigration without boundaries and no divisions to create us as one people. And Deuteronomy 32:8 says, the Most High gave nations their inheritance. He set boundaries according to the number of the sons of God. Genesis 10 lists 70 different ethnic groups that came from Noah after the Tower of Babel. And God assigns nations stewardship to angel principalities, but he kept Israel for himself. So by tearing down all of the borders we becoming all one people, it's going back to what brought judgment from the Tower of Babel, in my opinion, potentially. We'll see what God thinks about that. Transhumanism is a whole subject in and of itself where we can, and they are, the Department of War, not only in the United States, but other countries are looking at enhancing soldiers with implants, eye things. So you've got infrared, different types of vision automatically built into you. Super soldiers is what they're calling them. And where we have Elon creating all of these robots, and where the AI, some of the AI programs almost seem to be becoming sentient, having consciousness, which is a definition of life, and they've had to turn some off. Because they began speaking in a language we don't understand, cutting out humanity. There's a site that they just found that apparently AI agents created to talk about basically domineering humanity. So transhumanism, like CERN, deserve their own study, apart from what I'm doing here. February 28th, 2026, there was a rare Earth alignment in the western sky of Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and it was viewable in Los Angeles at 6:18 p.m. And that is the day that the USA and IDF attacked Iran. They were actually scheduled to do it on Tuesday. And what backed it up in just a few hours was that intelligence came in that Ayatollah Khamenei had gathered with a large group of people, and that they were now having a meeting. The United States and Israel decided to move this attack from Tuesday to February 28th, which was the day of this planetary alignment. And President Trump is the 47th president of the United States. The Ayatollahs had been in power in Iran for 47 years. So 47 and 47 is kind of odd. Then you've got 40 advisors, according to news sources, that were meeting with the Ayatollah, and they were all killed in the strike at the same time. Iran then declared 40 days of mourning with a 7-day holiday to honor the 36-year rule of Ayatollah Khomeini, along with 3 days of public mourning. Then just a few days after that, on March 3rd, 2026, the first day of the Hebrew celebration of Purim, or Purim as they call it, that is the third month, the third day. This blood moon happened on the 33rd parallel, and it happened at 3:33 Pacific time. It's a lot of threes here. Sunrise was at 6:38 Eastern time. So this blood moon is happening 5 minutes before sunrise. So it's almost as if God is saying, out with the old, I'm beginning something new. And 3 years from March 3rd, 2026, there's not going to be another blood moon now until 2029. Blood moons are interpreted as a divine signal. Joel 2:31, Acts 2:20. It is an announcement of the approaching day of the Lord. It is a prophetic call to repentance, a warning of judgment, and a warning of pivotal times ahead for Israel. And this blood moon on March 3rd was called a worm moon. It's a spring moon because that is when the ground begins to warm and the worms begin to move in the ground as a new season begins. The last blood moon over the United States was May 17th, 2022. And it was a super blood moon, and it was called the flower blood moon. And it was super because it was 1.3 days after perigee, which is where the moon looks larger to the earth. The Supreme Court on June 24th, 2022, overturned Roe v. Wade, allowing states to ban abortion, taking it off the federal level and putting it onto the states. And that was thought to be impossible for anything to happen with Roe v. Wade. Yet it happened. Was God saying through that blood moon on May 17th, 2022, I'm about to do something major? I think he was. Jeremiah 25:30-31 reads, the Lord shall roar upon his habitation. And Israel named their operation for February 28th, Roaring Lion. And the USA called their operation Epic Fury. And the core truth is Isaiah 13:4. And this is where it gets a little difficult because the modern church only looks at God from an aspect of love, mercy, forgiveness, long suffering. We don't like to look at the complete picture of God. And in Isaiah 13, verse 4, the Lord of hosts mustereth the host of the battle. God commissions invading nations. He elevates empires and he removes empires. He activates armies as a method of judgment. And we see this over and over and over through the Bible. In Isaiah 10:5-6, Assyria against Israel is what's going to happen here. And the Bible says, O Assyrian, the rod of my anger and the staff in their hand is my indignation. I will send him against a hypocritical nation, against the people of my wrath will I give him a charge to take spoil, to take prey, and to tread them down like the mire in the street. God explicitly says here, I will send. God calls Assyria the rod of my anger. And we see in 2 Kings 17:6, Israel was removed. In this, God declared he commissioned the war as judgment. Babylon also was against Judah. Habakkuk 1:6 says, for lo, I raise up the Chaldeans. God raised them up. Jeremiah 25:9, I will send Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and will bring them against this land and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and I will utterly destroy them, making them an astonishment, a hissing, and a perpetual desolation. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth, the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom, the voice of the bride, the sound of the millstone, the light of the candle. The whole land will be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon 70 years and bring them against this land. The direct action of these verses is that God will raise them up. God will send them. It is the direct action. And God calls Nebuchadnezzar a pagan king, my servant. This is God publicly claiming responsibility for the initiation of the action of the invasion. Our God prophecies will be fulfilled. And we know that all of the world of the men of power will war against the return of Jesus Christ. But his word will be fulfilled in totality one day. There are many prophecies left to be fulfilled, but our God is willing to delay things. He is willing to extend time. We see that in the Bible too, by the prayers of his people, by the repentance of people, by the turning away. We see in Scripture that God is willing to delay. But Jesus is coming back one day. Those feet will descend upon the Mount of Olives, which is where he left from, and that we are to keep our eyes locked on him. I say these things not so that you're afraid, because we're told to fear not, but we're to look up. Our redemption is drawing near as we see these things begin to happen. I am comforted knowing that God is so clearly in control. He's controlling things in the heavens and on the earth. And he is still on his throne, ruling and reigning over the affairs of men. And for that, I am most grateful. So keep your eyes posted, for God is speaking. Know your God.